Hey friends, Dave Paulides, Canadian Missing Project. That is Huck L. Berry. Yes, Huck. Say hi. Say hi to your fans. All your doggy friends and cat friends and livestock friends out there. They say, hi, Huck. You're a good girl. Yeah. That's enough, Dad. I'm moving along. Yep, there she goes. Okay. So, I got a powerful show for you today. Huck says, yeah, right. A little different than what you've experienced in the past. But before I get on to that, some old business. New York Post. I think someone's paying attention to what I'm doing. An article in the New York Post, February 1st, 2026. Resurfaced 33-year-old Egyptian document hints at biblical giants being real. Historians are scratching their heads at a resurfaced Egyptian scroll held by the British Museum that might support the claim that biblical giants were in fact real. Genesis chapter 6 of the Bible is about God's response to the widespread human wickedness and corruptedness, which was supposedly caused by Nephilim, powerful beings that were the sons of fallen angels and human women. Can you believe this is in the New York Post? Someone is paying attention. It was these sons who were described as giant beings and referred to as men of renown that caused widespread chaos, which prompted God to cleanse the earth by destroying all creatures under the sky with flood waters. Hey, what are you doing? Relax. Fast forward till now. Anastasia 1, a 3,300-year-old document that's been in the British Museum since 1839, has reignited the interest of the Associates for Biblical Research. A religious organization in Pennsylvania has historians and researchers believing that these men of renown, giants, may actually be real. The ancient document, which is believed to be from the 13th century BCE, mentions run-ins with the Shozu people who were supposedly 8 feet tall, which scared Israelites as originally reported in the Daily Mail. To connect the dots with the Anastasia 1 is proof beyond what is said in the Bible that giants existed. Numbers 13. Hey, what are you doing? Don't scare the people like that. Shh. Hey, you be a good girl. These are your fans. You got to be real. You got to be shush. A verse from the Old Testament also hints at Israelites coming across these large figures. Quote, and there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come from the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight, end of quotes. The scroll, which researchers believe to be a letter written by a scribe, says, quote, the narrow defile is infested with Shozu concealed beneath the bushes. Some of them are 4 cubits or of 5 cubits from head to foot, fierce of face, their heart is not mild, and they hearken not to coaxing, end of quotes. Quote, 4 cubits or 5 cubits straw translates to 8 feet. End of quotes. With all that being said, historians remain skeptical as to there is reportedly no physical proof or archaeological evidence that giants once existed. Oh, but how many times have you and I gone through articles where giants were found and then the Smithsonian says we don't have them? No, we had them, but we don't have them anymore. On the flip side, claims of supersized humans from Central America roaming a remote town 90 miles northeast of Reno, Nevada are still baffling scientists all these years later. While many believe these red-headed, pale-skinned giants to be legend, some reports of discoveries, like when a pair of miners allegedly came across 60 human skeletons measuring 7 feet by 8 feet tall, say otherwise. That's the entire article. Fascinating. Fascinating. Are there people paying attention to what I'm doing? I think that there is. Now we're going to jump over, and I'm sure you guys are going, where's Dave going with all this? Hold your taters. So I did 4 or 5 segments on giants, right? Now we're going to skip over to livestock and cattle mutilations. Oh my God, I can see people's heads blowing up on the perimeter. They're going, what are you doing, Dave? What's going on here? Calm down. I've been at this research on missing 411 for far over a decade. When I first got into it, I was contacted by a series of researchers, several of them, saying, Dave, you're on to something big that no one ever has touched on, but is related peripherally to what we're doing as well. And that led on to conversations with some of the biggest researchers, in my mind, in the world. And I haven't talked a lot about them because sometimes the conversations were asked to be kept confidential. Other times they were not. The times they were not, I'm going to talk about them. And what they came to me with is what I'm going to tell you right now. Dave, imagine in your research when you talk about people being there 1 second and the next second they're not there. Parents saying, yeah, my child was there 1 second and then they weren't. 1. They bring in professional trackers and they find no tracks. 2. When they're searching for someone, oftentimes they're found in an area previously searched. 3. Sometimes they're found and it appears that they've been dropped. 4. Searchers, owners, people that live in the area report seeing nothing, smelling nothing, hearing nothing. Researchers go to the scene and there's no evidence at the scene. And the cases are strewn across many states and sometimes they're in clusters. What? What? So those 7 points I gave you are essentially the profile points that I work under. But what if I told you that those points can also be applied to cattle and livestock mutilations? Oh, so true. Oh, so true. And I'm going to talk about a few of those tonight. I really don't care if you shut me down right now and walk away and say, oh, this is just complete garbage. I really don't care. Because I've known about this for over a decade. And like I said, some of the best researchers in the world have talked to me about this. It's such a confusing topic because of what's been made about cattle and livestock mutilations. And I'm going to clear up some of those tonight or today. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is an article that appeared in the Idaho Statesman, September 8th, 1974. It says, cultist cattle mutilations irk Nebraska ranchers. There's angry and serious talk among Nebraska ranchers and farmers about helicopter-equipped devil cultists and fertility ritualism. As a precaution, the Army National Guard has ordered its helicopters to fly at 1,000 feet or higher rather than their usual 500 feet. The Guard's actions, taken after a commercial pilot checking a power line near Grand Isle, Nebraska, was shot at, comes in the wake of a series of weird cow and horse mutilations that have enraged local residents. Since the spring, 21 cases of cow or horse mutilations have been authenticated in a 5-county area, and some observers say the number should really be as high as 50. Stop there for a second. A large number of ranchers do not report these. Why? They believe that if they do, it'll cast a negative shadow on their herd, as though something's wrong with the herd and people won't want to buy them. or it'll reduce the price. So the majority say nothing. However, Pierce County rancher Eugene Scott said last week, a calf which had been dead only 5 hours, according to the examining veterinarian. Its 6 organs had been removed and the body drained of all blood. State Patrol investigator E.M. Hassreiter said no blood or tracks were found at the scene. Mutilation stories began in May, and at first authorities attributed them to varmints, mostly coyotes. Lie. But then a veterinarian called to examine the dismembering and draining of a cow near Madison in June said he was convinced that a human element was involved. In most cases, blood had been drained and reproductive organs removed. A helicopter frequently had been seen hovering over the area about the time of the mutilation. A chopper with a spotlight was seen over the Lancaster County farm of Richard Bennis on the night of the confirmed mutilation. Knox County Sheriff Herbert Thompson, who is investigating 7 mutilations, also reports a simultaneous sighting of strange and unidentified helicopters in that area. Dr. Richard Thill, a professor of German at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, who also teaches non-credited witchcraft courses, has been reviewing the reports and calls the incidents ritualistic. It could be someone setting up a fertility cult of some kind, or it could be someone putting you on. All right, let me put a couple things to rest right here. First of all, cultists, ritualistics do not have the monetary funds to hire helicopters to fly at $1,500 an hour and do this kind of garbage. That's number one. Number two, they also aren't advanced enough not to leave some type of tracks. Number three, they have to use some transportation to get there and to leave. And like I said, they do not have the wherewithal to purchase helicopter time. The biggest one. Why not just steal the cattle, put them in your truck, and go do your ritualistic thing in the middle of the woods where nobody would see you? Why would you ever do it at a location where you can be seen? Think about all the livestock that's stolen and nobody ever sees or hears anything. Why do it on the property of the owner of the cattle? And therein lies one of the big conundrums on this entire issue. And I will speak to that as we go on. So, one last thing. Remember they said that there's no blood in the cattle? There's also no blood on the ground. There's no tracks on the ground. Do you believe these ritualistic people have that ability to do that so there's no blood in the cow at all? I don't think so. And you know why I don't think so? Because vets at the time said they couldn't even do it. Giddy up. November 12th. We're going to hover right around 1975. November 12th, 1975. Probers, people probing the topic, find little new. Boise, special investigators assigned to crack the cattle mutilation mystery in Idaho have come up apparently empty-handed. An Idaho Attorney General's report on cattle mutilations in Idaho, due for release next week, say no bombshells of new information have come out, according to investigator Dave Rowe. Rowe, who would not discuss the specifics of the report, said mutilations don't appear to be the work of an organized group or satanic cult. He said over 100 cattle deaths were investigated during the Attorney General's probe. Of that number, only 40 or 50 were possible mutilations, with something there besides just a dead cow, something to arouse somebody's concern. They had some parts removed. There were more than just a dead animal lying there, Rose said. Asked if the results of the probe warrant any action at the state level, Rose said, not particularly. The reports should be somewhat helpful to local officials in investigating cattle deaths, he said. They might follow suggested procedures in the report. The AG's general probe was started a month ago, and 3 agents had been checking reported mutilations in all the parts of the state, relying primarily on local records and news reports. A rash of reported cattle mutilations across Idaho between June and early October prompted the investigation. Hold on. Minnesota, Texas, and Colorado also initiated state investigations of cattle mutilations. These reports failed to turn up any conclusive evidence about who was responsible for the bizarre removal of sexual organs and ears from dead cattle. So when Rose said, does a probe warrant of any action at a state level? He said, not particularly. What was he probably referring to? This is a federal issue. They have crossed state lines. Federal. Yes, you have to read between the lines on these cases. Trust me, I've been involved in this for over a decade. I have hundreds of reports, and I mean detailed reports, that I've read. I've been on scene many times. Trust me on this. It's not what you think. And we're going to get to that. Idaho Statesman, November 20th, 1975. Headlines: Report fails to link humans to cattle mutilations. Well, Dave, we've been reading that these are all ritualistic killings and... Oh, yeah? Oh, no. The evidence has been... No evidence has been found that humans killed and mutilated cattle. Out-of-state studies of similar deaths indicate predators as the cause of mutilations, the Attorney General's office reported Wednesday. They said not humans. So, local reports for local consumption. They will start saying things to put the public at ease that this is nothing to worry about. Turn the page, nothing here. Listen to what they have to say. Attorney General Wayne Kidwell is expected to issue a full report today on what investigators found concerning the 90 reported mutilations of cattle. Farmers and others in 22 counties have reported mutilations of cattle in recent months. In most cases, the sex organs and other parts of the body, such as tongue or ear, have been removed as if cut off by a knife. Wrong. As if cut off by a knife, but they weren't. Many reported no blood around the body. That is essentially impossible to do. Kidwell released a copy of one investigator's report Wednesday saying, "We are concluding there are rational explanations for these mutilations." The report was written by investigator Alan Serial. Information, both written and verbal, has been received from autopsies performed by Idaho by both Dr. Soleil State Lab and private veterinarians in an attempt to determine the cause of death, the report said. None have verified death by drugs or by known human cause. The report said in most instances the tissues or animal parts received are too decomposed for analysis. Lie again. The report said periodic checks have been made with the Idaho Cattlemen's Association, but that group also had nothing to report. Cattlemen had been offered a $1,000 reward for information leading to arrest and conviction. Out-of-state written reports, studies received on cause of mutilated areas of cattle verify predators as the cause, Serial's report says. Lie. The report said another investigator has done extensive research into cults, witchcraft, etc., and has found no information that shows cattle are used in rituals or other types of sacrifices. True. He has questioned persons having extensive knowledge of cults with negative results. Meanwhile, the cattle mutilation scare in southeast Idaho have resulted in citizen patrols in livestock areas. Fremont County to a major extent and Jefferson County to a minor extent have enlisted citizens' assistance in an attempt to observe cattle mutilations in progress. Never happened. Fremont County citizens have advised and cleared with a sheriff prior. They patrol roads and set up outposts near grazing cattle. The report said farmers shot at an air balloon. This is bizarre. This is how insane it is. The report said farmers shot at an air balloon containing 3 Idaho Falls youths October 25th. A confidential complaint about the incident did not reveal the names of the youths. Apparently, neither the balloon nor the balloonist were hit by the gunfire. The report said that several uninvolved citizens were stopped and questioned in Fremont County by citizens groups. Kidwell had assigned investigators to cattle mutilation problems in early October, asking them to monitor the mutilations. I would not characterize this as an investigation, he said at the time. We want to see if there is a common thread of evidence. And if it is, it might be helpful to local law enforcement. Let's calm the community, and this will all go away. Just wolves, bears, mountain lions, nothing here. Friends, when you go out and you talk to ranchers, they know the predators in the area. They know when their livestock is attacked, what type of predator got it. They look and they see the tracks around the corpse. They see the drag marks. They see the claw marks. They know exactly what got it and when. When they read this, they just laughed because they knew it was complete garbage. And when I've talked to ranchers, they said the same thing. Dave, don't bullshit me. Their words, not mine. Don't bullshit me. I'm too old. I've been around too long. Those guys tried to, but don't you. I love that kind of guy. You know why? Because they're not going to lie to you. They're going to tell you the truth. November 27th, 1975. Number of mutilations declines as investigations broaden. This is an interesting. Cattle mutilations, frequently blamed on witchcraft, religious cults, and visitors from outer space, are usually caused by disease and predators, veterinarians report. Lie. A UPI survey of recent rash of cattle mutilations reported in western states show the cases have dropped off in several states since insurance companies and animal doctors joined the investigations. Veterinarians maintain the answer is simple. Cattle disease, bloating, and predators. Skunks, foxes, and field mice that chew on the dead cows. How stupid do these people really think the ranchers and law enforcement are? Come on. Cattle mutilations were reported this fall in Arizona, Idaho, Wyoming, Nevada, Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois, Texas. 15 Colorado counties had reports of mutilations. Too often, young, inexperienced sheriff deputies go along with the idea of mutilation, says Dr. Leo Zerer, a state veterinarian from Bronson, Minnesota. How insulting. I suggested they report local veterinarians and try to determine them the cause of the cow's death. Before this fall, mutilations of cattle, sheep, and horses were reported in at least 3 Minnesota counties. But said Zerer that more experienced observers taking part in investigations, since then we haven't had one mutilation reported. Do you know why mutilation reports went down? Why would you call people in to report your mutilation when you're going to get bad-mouthed and they're going to lie to your face? Which is really what they wanted. They wanted these to go away. Let's humiliate the rancher and the field investigators that are there, and then they'll stop reporting them. That's the way this goes on. Dr. Elmer Powell, a veterinarian at Arizona Livestock Sanitary Board, investigated a dozen alleged cattle mutilations. After he reported on October 23rd that all the animals died of explainable causes and predators and scavengers chewed on the soft parts, no further No further mutilations were reported in Arizona. No kidding. Zara and Dr. Quentin Paulson of the Wisconsin Agricultural Department said insurance companies that had to pay for vandalized animals were responsible for better investigations into previously mysterious livestock deaths. Livestock men trying to collect insurance on dead cattle probably are responsible for spreading stories in the past 10 years about cattle being mutilated by cults, witchcraft, and visitors from outer space. When insurance companies became involved, they want positive proof of death. Rewards totaling $8,000 have been offered in Colorado and $3,500 in Wyoming for the arrest and conviction of alleged cattle mutilators. Minnesota Humane Society offered $1,000. Idaho cattlemen are offering $1,000. Dr. Walter Haugo, a Litchfield, Minnesota veterinarian, said an animal sickness called Clostridium hermolyticum, commonly known as red water disease, is one of the several sicknesses in which blood is drained from an animal, making it look like the occult, something to cause the death. But there's no blood on the ground. Wake up. The Wyoming Attorney General's office said there's sufficient reason to believe that at least a small minority of the cases, the mutilations, have been a result of human wielding sharp instruments. Lie. In Illinois, Adams County Sheriff Robert Nall thinks mutilations are like a fad. Lie. As the news travels about the mutilations, there are new people to pick up the idea and perform these acts. We don't know whether this is a religious cult, a practical joke, or if it's some type of organized involved that is known to the general public. Let me explain. If a cattle rancher in the middle of northern Oregon, northeast Oregon, finds one of his bulls mutilated, and he knows, there's no tracks in the fresh snow around my bull, and on the left side, all of his ribs are broken, the side he's on the ground, and there's an indentation in the mud where he fell. Why would I call somebody who knows less than me to come out and investigate the case and badmouth me for telling them things that are obvious and they won't report? So they don't report it. Unfortunately, this is happening more times than not. There are instances in Eastern Oregon where that exact same thing has been happening. Several bulls in recent times, in the last few years, have died on one ranch, mutilated. Interesting, eh? Well, that's not the end of the story, by any means. Editor's note. This is the second in a series of articles written on the subject of cattle mutilations and possible occult. The possibility of a revival of ancient Mediterranean religions suggesting connection with cattle mutilations by State University professor Walter Wigington. This is South Idaho Press. Wigington was quick to point out that he has not had the practical experience in the occult, which has been suggested by the news articles calling him an expert. He's no expert. He indicated some reluctance to discuss the subject because of the psychological dimension, the possibility that some innocent slob will be hurt or killed if people in the media and in general do not exercise restraint in the matter. Stories about mutilations and the emotional response among the populace may cause imitation or even false confession by some unstable person, he said. He noted cases of both new phenomena during the witch persecutions of the Middle Ages in Europe and early America. Dr. Wigington said there are many organizations, covens of witches throughout the country, but that they are by and large pretty innocent affairs. Actually, no order of an incident fertility religions. There are also satanic cults in America, he said, but nothing that has run across would indicate that either type of group is involved in the 90 or so mutilations reported in Idaho. The reported cases of mutilations in which most or all of the blood is removed from the carcass immediately suggested something to him that he first dismissed as too ridiculous. Stop. So they're citing this guy. He's a professor. And he's saying it's ridiculous that all the blood's removed. Friends, I've read over 100 reports written by brilliant people. All the blood's removed. They do a necropsy. They can't even believe that all the blood is removed, to the point that only minute amount are found in small chambers. And doctors have said, veterinarians have said, that they couldn't even remove that much blood if they had to. Dr. Wigginton has enjoyed a revival of popular literature on witchcraft and Satanism. Modern witchcraft is based on the number of modern popular works, he said, implying that Mithraham might be also. One of the supporting props for Dr. Wigginton's theory of Mithraic, Mithraic revival in connection with cattle mutilations was knocked down in the question and answer period at the end of the forum. The professor had said a wooden plaque was found near the scene of cattle mutilations in Fremont County. He described the plaque and drew a sketch on a blackboard in which it looked like, according to reports from persons who had seen it. He said he was told that the plaque disappeared after the mutilation was discovered. The plaque, as Wigginton described it, showed a square building with what appeared to be a sun rising or setting with rays emanating from the sun. A Fremont County deputy later in the forum said the reason for the plaque had disappeared was that it was in the custody of his office. It did in fact look much like a sketch Dr. Wigginton drew, he said. The deputy did not explain how the emblem came to be at the scene. The deputy did confirm that the reports that blood had been taken from some of the mutilated animals. In at least one case, it appeared to have been done penetrating the heart and letting the blood escape, possibly through a hose, while the heart was still pumping. And the reason they say that is because they can't find a way at this time. They couldn't think of a way that all of the blood could be pumped out of the carcass unless the heart did it itself. Again, this is a very long topic, and I'm bringing you in from the beginning. Dr. Whittington edited his presentation by saying that all of his theory is speculation, but that the features of mutilation suggest cult involvement. Well, as I stated to you, he is not an expert. He even said so. They held a forum sponsored by Idaho State University. The forum was held earlier this week at the ISU campus and included presentations by 3 speakers: Caribou County Sheriff Ralph Marriott, ISU Professor Walter Wigginton, and Burley veterinarian Dr. Thornburg. Wigginton discussed the possibility and involvement of cattle mutilations reported this summer. He said he wasn't an expert. Probably the most important thing we've heard. Now, I've told you before that I was in far northern Canada in the middle of nowhere, and we're working on a missing persons case that we filmed for Missing 411 The Hunted. And I go to this one little cabin that I'm told to go talk to this security guy for a logging company, knock on the door. The guy goes, "Hey, you're Dave Paulides." I go, "Wow." And he has all my books. And he tells me, "Hey, Dr. Bigelow's people were just here last week. Is that why you're here? I said, what? He said, yeah, Bigelow's research team was here doing Bigfoot research. Is that why you're here? No, but I'm going to listen. Yeah, I listened to the guy. Years later, I spoke to Colin Kelleher. We met several times, who was the head of that research team. I said, Colin, you and I are playing tic-tac-toe across the nation, right on each other's path. He goes, yeah, I know. And he said, yeah, we sent a team up there. He said, well, Dave, your research, Colin Kelleher said this, the head of Robert Bigelow's research team at Skinwalker Ranch. Dave, your research on missing people is related to our research at the ranch. And you know, we've been doing research for a long time on livestock mutilation, disappearances of livestock, Bigfoot. And Dave, it's our opinion your research is related to our work. I nearly fell out of the chair. I had never had validation from someone so smart that I was on the right track. And Colin and I had several conversations over the years. And I think it was his respect for my work is the reason he gave me one of the very, very few interviews he had ever done in American Sasquatch, Man, Myth, or Legend. I talked to him for over an hour and a half that day. You saw just a very small clip. Hopefully I can get more to you about that interview. But the point being, he and I sat down over the many meetings and discussed the possible direction that I would go on the research. And what I liked about that is he wasn't in the middle of my work. I wasn't in the middle of his work. But a man with 4 physicists working for him, some of the top scientists in the world, looking at my work and making recommendations to me, I would be an idiot not to listen to him. One of those meetings, he asked me for copies of the cluster maps of the United States. I gave him 6 of them. He passed them out to his people that wanted them. They wanted to look at them. And they wanted to see if the dispersion of the missing was related to UFOs. I gave those to him. I also gave him, I was requested by a team member that's at Skinwalker Ranch now. And I gave him copies of them as well for the same research work that they were doing. I talked to him last year at Phenomicon. I'll let his name go. He's one of the top people there. It's not Travis, but it's one of the top people. I'll let his name kind of go on the sidelines because they're still working on it. He said as soon as they get done, I'll be one of the first ones to have a copy of what they find about those maps and what they're doing. Of course I'm going to help them. So, why are we talking about this? Because of the parallels between my work and livestock mutilation go along this path. And they're running parallel to each other, folks. And no, I have never researched a body in North America where there was no blood in it. It's never happened. There's rumors that there's one case on the East Coast, but there's so much lying that's involved in that case, I don't believe any of it. I think it was in Pennsylvania. I spent days looking at it. There's so many lies, I can't even believe anything. So I'm just going to dump it. And that was the only one I could ever find. And it almost appeared like someone was trying to tell a story to fit into my criteria. Now, in the future, there's going to be more clarity about this. I'm going to explain some of these issues. How can a cow disappear next to a house and the ranchers that live in the house not hear anything? The same way, a husband and wife walking down a trail and their son or daughter is right next to them and they hear, see, smell nothing, and the child's gone. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So, how is that happening? Oh, we're going to get into it. And your eyes are going to be wide open. I'm not going to feed you a lot of gobbledygook. I'm going to treat you to straight science from some of the smartest people I know. In the meantime, thank you for being here. You are greatly appreciated. And please do not give up on this. It's all going to come into focus. Be safe, be kind, practice kindness. Paulides out.